In today's episode, I will be sharing a framework on how to decide if you should leave behind your job. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Ctrl Alt Career. I recently left behind my dream job as a general manager of a fashion startup in Singapore. And if you want to find out more about why I decided to leave behind my dream job, you can check out my last video here. Alright, so are we ready? First and foremost, do not rage quit. I read this really interesting stat the other day, which is that 25% of people who quit their jobs as part of the Great Resignation actually regrets doing it. And so I want you to think twice, thrice, 4 times and make sure that you are quitting for the right reasons and not because of FOMO or rage or annoyance, whatever it might be. Just make sure that it is not an emotionally charged decision and that you are making this decision in more calm circumstances. Tip number 2, use the regret minimization framework. Simply speaking, this framework just asks the question, would you regret staying at your job more or would you regret leaving your job more? And I wanted to highlight this in an example in my own personal life. I started off my career in finance and I spent 7 years there. And I probably knew pretty early on that it wasn't the right role for me. But I thought I would regret leaving more than I would regret staying. I thought maybe life does get better if I stick it out. Maybe life gets better if I get promoted, and I wanted to wait to see if that would actually be any different. And I knew I would regret it if I had left before I was ready to go, before I had proven to myself whether or not life does get better down the road. Tip number 3, keep in mind that decisions are not necessarily binary, and try to find something in that gray area. Sometimes we think that it's either to leave your job or to stay at your job, and it's either one or the other. But what I want to challenge you here is that there's probably something in between. For example, I didn't love my job in finance at the beginning, but I loved the company that I worked at, and I loved the people that was at that company. And so I thought to myself, is it really just to leave this job or just to stay at this job? Or is there an in-between solution? And so what I came up with for myself was to stay at the same company, but to try out a different role and a different location. And at that time for me, that was a great decision. I felt way happier about my career in this new role, in this new location. And I still had what I loved, which was the culture of the company and to be surrounded by the people that I liked at the company. Tip number 4, write down a pros and cons list and see which side is longer. I want you to take a look at that list and look at it objectively. Which side's reasoning is actually more aligned with your long-term goals and your values? Because sometimes it's easy to just use synonymous words like, I hate this job, I'm angry at this job sucks. And then that side of the list seems to be really long because you just came up with many, many reasons that were just paraphrasing the same reason. As part of this pros and cons list, here are 2 more questions that I would recommend you try to answer. Number 1, do you want your boss's job? And number 2, are you still learning? And most importantly, is what you're learning getting you closer to your long-term goal? To give you an example, in my personal life, when I was asking myself the question of, am I still learning? Back when I was still at BlackRock, the answer was yes. I was still learning. I was constantly learning about what was happening in the financial markets, and it was exciting and interesting in its own ways. But what I realized is that this learning was not actually getting me closer to my long-term goal, which was to build my own business. And so then I realized I should probably go find a job where it would give me the learning that would get me closer to my long-term goal of building a business, which is then what led me to go join a fashion startup where I got the opportunity to actually learn how to build a business. This leads me to tip number 5. Identify what it is that you want to do next. And ask yourself, do you need to quit your job to do this other thing? Or can it be a side hustle? Or maybe it's not that you want to start your own business and, move away from a corporate job, but maybe you just want to join another industry. For example, you want to move into tech? Well, do you know what specifically within tech you're interested in doing? Is it being a software engineer, a data scientist, being a product manager, or is it doing something within business development? Have you done the research and talked to the relevant people to have a good understanding of what's next for you? Until you get clear on what it is that you want to do, jumping into the next thing blindly will probably lead you to the same place that you're in right now, which is unhappy with your corporate job. And lastly, tip number 6, figure out your personal finances. Are you ready to make a change in your career? Do you need to take a pay cut? Are you ready financially to take a pay cut? How long are you able to sustain this pay cut for? Make sure you answer these questions and have very good clarity on your personal finances before you quit your job. All right, that's all for today. If you need some help identifying what is it that you would like to do next, I have a 3-step guide to help you figure out your passion. Check out the show notes to today's episode or head over to the description box below for a copy of this. And if you'd like more one-on-one guidance, I also do have a career coaching program, so feel free to reach out to me and I'd love to see how I can help. Hope this was helpful, guys. If you liked it, do hit subscribe so you stay tuned for more career-related content coming out in the next couple of weeks.